Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we're actually talking about the Los Angeles Police Department, that's right, the LAPD, because Facebook is telling the LAPD to stop spying on users with fake accounts. Now, this is coming from the BBC, and this is absolutely interesting and a little shocking. Documents obtained through public record requests made by nonprofit organization the Brennan Center of Justice showed that in 2019, the LAPD had been using Voyager Labs' social media surveillance software to collect data from suspects' social media networks, including their friends' accounts. Now, Voyager Labs claims that its software is able to help analyze large amounts of data to help solve crimes, including helping to discern users' motives and beliefs. The LAPD said in emails that the software had been particularly useful in investigating the activities of street gangs online and crucial in helping its robbery and homicide division collect evidence. Facebook expressly prohibits the creation and use of fake accounts. The intent, it said, was to, quote, create a safe environment where people can trust and hold others, one another accountable. We all know fake accounts are rampant to the point where Facebook, a couple years ago, deleted something like 1 billion fake accounts out there, whether they were bots or something else. So obviously, while they prohibit it, it is pretty rampant. Now, the intent, according to Facebook, as I mentioned, was to create that safe environment. Facebook's vice president and deputy general counsel for civil rights, Roy Austin, said in a letter, and I quote, "Not only do LAPD instructional documents use Facebook as an explicit example in advising officers to set up fake social media accounts, but documents also indicate that LAPD policies simply allow officers to create fake accounts for, quote, online investigative activity. While the legitimacy of such policies may be up to the LAPD, officers must abide by Facebook's policies when creating accounts on our services. The police department should cease all activities on Facebook that involve the use of fake accounts, impersonation of others, and collection of data for surveillance purposes." Now, Facebook is arguing that spying on users and impersonating legitimate users goes against its purpose and policies, which is to enable people to, quote, connect and share with real people using their authentic identities. However, fake names, interestingly enough, can be justified in situations where human rights activists or journalists are seeking to protect online privacy, or for users in countries where the internet basically is censored. And so by virtue of that, you have a fake account, so you're not arrested, imprisoned, or worse in your authoritarian country. Cybersecurity expert Robert Potter actually mentioned that in the BBC article, and I thought it was a really good point. Also, remember that Facebook has been slow to take action in the past on issues like misleading political ads, online scams, social media's negative effects on teenagers, and more. Mr. Potter also mentioned that, and he is absolutely right. When you are looking at this, we have a massive problem, as we've seen multiple times in the past with the 2016 election and even before that, of fake accounts basically running influence campaigns, misinformation, disinformation campaigns, and now essentially Facebook can be used for surveillance. I'm sure the LAPD is not the only law enforcement agency in the world, even in the United States, that is actually doing this. Now, nobody wants to see criminal gangs essentially grow and expand and all of that, but if I, let's say, unknowingly happen to be a friend of somebody that is doing illegal things, I am now caught up in this because, let's say, they can see my information. If my privacy settings in Facebook, aren't locked down to have only me or my friends see my information. Now, do I become a suspect? Where does this start and end? And if they are training LAPD officers to do this, then what's stopping them from creating fake accounts online and figuring out the best ways to stalk an ex? Yeah, I mean, there has to be limits. There has to be a line on this. There also has to be an understanding that the scope has to be focused specifically on, let's say, a suspected gang member, a suspected criminal, whatever that is. Going outside of that scope, obviously, is a huge problem. Now, maybe you're trying to track this person. Maybe they posted on their Facebook page, like, hey, I'm going to be at this party tonight, or whatever it is, and you're going to show up there to arrest that individual. But anything above and beyond that is surveillance. You are actively watching this or attempting to connect to people, basically masquerading as a potential friend. And here we are. It's something that we do in phishing and all of that as we are doing assessments, on organizations. We can create a fake Facebook account, connect to you and say, hey, I'm this long lost friend because as we were looking through your history, we found out where you went to college. And now suddenly we went to college there as well. Same course load you had, et cetera, et cetera. So This is something that I think Facebook really needs to address. They've been very poor at handling these things in the future, and so the LAPD is simply using it to their advantage. And if Facebook really actually did care about true identities, and actual security, meaning they're not going to allow bots, they're not going to allow, these kinds of things out there, they need to start implementing better identity management systems to actually validate people, but also keep people secure and private. This is where basically authentication standards like human ID come in that are essentially pioneering these kinds of things that would make, I think, the internet a much nicer place, because you are basically there with your identity, but you can still maintain your privacy. And I think that's something that a lot of organizations, especially the major online platforms, really need to start integrating. Oftentimes, we don't know if things are going viral because a bot network has not been, captured or understood to be spreading this and killed by the Facebooks and the Twitters of the world. But these things actually happen. It's something that we really need to focus on. It's something that we really need to address. And Facebook has been dropping the ball, as I just mentioned, on these things. And so that is to everybody's advantage, whether it's the LAPD or you or me. That said, law enforcement has to have strict guidelines along constitutional lines for the right to privacy here in the United States. And if you have law enforcement doing this in your country, I hope your country's constitution or rights or whatever that founding document is really spells that out, that you should be insulated from these kinds of things from law enforcement, especially if you're not just a criminal. It's the same with the geofencing warrants that we are seeing. They don't know who did it, so they're just basically subpoenaing every cell phone in a vicinity to see who could be a potential suspect. If somebody gets murdered a mile up the road from me, I could potentially be a suspect just because I'm sitting in my house talking to you here on a video, because my cell phone is pinging a cell tower in the vicinity of that crime. That is something that is obviously a huge, huge problem. We don't have good laws here in the United States, to do that, to basically thwart those kinds of things. And it's something that we really need, our federal government to do on a nationwide standard. It helps to improve our actual constitutional right to privacy against the government. So that is your news of the day. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And here we are. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please stay private. Thanks, everyone.